Hi everyone, this is our channel Around My Story. Please like, share and subscribe.
I tell myself, ignore it. It's getting closer. Just ignore it. But it gets even closer. I tell myself, act natural, like you see nothing. But then it passes right by me. I take a deep breath. There's another one, but it's far away from me. Don't worry, I'm as lost as you are. Excuse me, your order? The cashier asks me. Hurry up, you're holding up the line, says the man behind me. I quickly order a cheeseburger with Coke and take the receipt. That was so tense. See, the thing is, I've been able to see ghosts for a long time. It all started when I was a kid. I was so scared, and I told my parents, but they didn't believe me. I was quite the storyteller back then, too. Now let's go back to the restaurant. I get my meal and sit back at my place. I see ghosts, wandering aimlessly. How interesting, right? Wrong. I notice a few girls sitting next to me. I recognize one of them, Jennifer from my class. She's adored by everyone. I find her quite annoying. I think she senses me looking and glances at me. I quickly look away. I prefer being alone over being a clown. It's starting to get dark. As I walk home, I take a few snaps with my camera along the way. Trees, flowers, sky, streets, cars, houses, or anything beautiful that catches my eye. It's like capturing the moment at the right time and from the perfect angle. The street in autumn looks amazing. The mix of red, yellow, and orange is dazzling. It's my favorite time of the year. There are a few people here and there. So are the ghosts. I used to have a hard time figuring out if a certain person is alive or is a ghost. They all just seemed so similar to me. As I'm walking wrapped up in my thoughts, I see a guy standing near a tree a few steps away. He's staring at the leaves. At that moment, he looks picture perfect. He's tall, dark messy hair, and curious eyes. He looks like he's in a trance, deep in thought. The setting sun's light graces him at the right angles. Alas, I couldn't help but want to try to capture this image. He notices someone staring at him, and he looks at me. Embarrassed, I just nervously wave my hand and say sorry. He looks around to see if I was talking to someone else. Feeling awkward, I turn and go on my way, but he's coming towards me now. And then I watch as a woman with a stroller passes by, and he goes right through her. That's when I realized I'd made a huge mistake. He keeps walking toward me, confusion on his face. I ignore him and keep walking. This is what I meant by not being able to tell the difference sometimes. Hey, wait! He yells, but I pay him no attention. This is why I avoid them. As soon as they notice I could see them, they either won't leave me alone or want me to do something for them, which is quite a hassle. Plus, what if some of them try to hurt me? As I keep walking, he runs up in front of me. You can see me, right? He says. I ignore his words and walk right through him. Whenever I make these types of mistakes of revealing myself, I make them think they misunderstood, and then they leave. I know you can see me, he says, and keeps following me. Now he's walking right beside me. I keep ignoring him. Why are you pretending? He asks. He keeps trying to get me to talk all the way to my house. When is he gonna leave? I wonder as I enter my home. I groan internally as he follows me inside too. He smirks. I know you can see me. Ignore me all you want. I am gonna make you talk to me, he says as he follows me to the kitchen. This is getting frustrating. At night, when I try to sleep, it feels so unbearable. He's sitting right in the corner of my room. He still hasn't left. He must have known I can't fall asleep as he starts humming. It's all to annoy me so I would acknowledge him. Resist! Resist it! I keep telling myself. Don't snap! He wants you to do that. Don't do it. I take a deep breath and calm myself. After that, I try my hardest to sleep while he annoys me all night long. I didn't even get a wink of sleep. I pat myself on the back for keeping it all together all night. Looking at the mirror, I look like a zombie. He laughs, much to my irritation. You look terrible. I'm honestly impressed by your patience and endurance, he says. I sigh. I was so nervous for today's presentation I couldn't sleep at all, I say to myself. He simply rolls his eyes. Later, he follows me to school. He noticed how I avoid confrontation with other ghosts. Why do you avoid them? With your ability, you could help them, he says as I take my seat in the class. No way. Like I said, it's such a hassle to do all of that. It's not my job. He then sits on top of my desk, one leg on top of the other. Annoying. So, Elizabeth, I see you have no friends. You're lonely. That's not good. You should learn to make friends. He laughs. I simply take out a book and read. I won't let him get on my nerves. He then leans towards my face. I keep my eyes on the book. He smirks. You're a sad little person. Then gets up and leaves the classroom. I sigh in relief. Finally he's gone. At lunchtime, I head to the cafeteria. While I'm eating, I suddenly spot him from the corner of my eye. He's just goofing around, making faces at people and wandering around through them. Seeing him like this makes me giggle. I made you laugh. He's right beside me all of a sudden. I was just about to turn towards him when I restrained myself. Seriously, just drop it. I already know you can see me. Don't worry, I'll keep it a secret. I hear him say. I don't want to. Bracing myself, I only glance at him. When he sees that I'm looking at him, he smirks. So, ready to talk now? He says. He's the most frustrating ghost I've met so far. Usually when I make a mistake and they follow me, they only stay for a little while before giving up. But this guy just doesn't quit. What do you want? I whisper. He simply grins. Nothing. I get up and start to walk out of the cafeteria. No, wait, I was only kidding. He runs by my side. I avoid eye contact and keep moving forward. What is it? I ask him. Let's be friends, he says. I roll my eyes. Why? No reason. Or maybe because you're lonely, he says. Go be friends with other ghosts. Leave me alone, I say and enter the classroom. He wants something from me. I know it, but he's hesitant to say it. Now I'm starting to get curious. I look at him. He's sitting on top of the teacher's desk, thinking about something. He sat there the whole day, which was fun to watch. On my way home, he kept following me. I think he gave up finding a way because he then walks beside me. Listen, we don't have to be friends, but I just really need your help, he says. Bingo, I was right. What is it? I ask again. He stretches his arms. I'll tell you when we get home, he says and walks ahead. Then he stops and turns around. Oh, and by the way, my name's Alex. At home, after I'm done eating and taking a shower, I meet him in my room. I really want to get this over with. He's waiting patiently in the corner. So, what do you want, Alex? I say as I sit on my bed. He takes a deep breath. I was murdered. My eyes widen. Murdered? No way. This one is out of my league. I thought it'll be something like giving a message to a family member or some unfinished business like returning something to someone. But murder? Seriously? I just can't. Look, if you want me to avenge you or something like that, then it's not possible. I tell him, but he just shakes his head. No, that's not it. It's the reason I was murdered. I'd heard something which I wasn't supposed to hear. A secret. When they found out that I heard, they killed me. Now that is interesting. Usually when someone is murdered, they want revenge. So what do you want me to do? I asked him. He looks me in the eye. I want you to expose that secret. I couldn't, but I feel that you could, he tells me. You want me to risk my life for something you got killed for? That's even more messed up. There's no way I could get involved in such things. I say, now this is getting out of hands. He gets up too. This is serious. You're the only person who can help me. And let me tell you this. Many lives are at stake. I don't want revenge. I want to save the lives of the victims. If I got a chance to be alive again, I'd still do it. I calm myself down and sit back. Tell me about it first, I say. He smiles and sits back. Eleanor Parker. Do you know her? The new actress. My eyes widened. She killed you? I asked. I guess, he nods. What do you mean you guess? That is the good person you're talking about. Or at least that's what everyone says about her. I say defensively. He just snickers. Not at all. Or rather, she has a dark side. You see, she's involved in illegal activities. Human trafficking. So she's involved in human trafficking, and when you heard about it, you wanted to expose her. But then she found out, and she got rid of you, right? I say, exactly, he says. How did you find out? Well, I used to work for her, he says. But he looks like a high school kid. He must have seen my expression because he continues to explain. Part-time. I actually lived independently and was short on cash. I got to work there through some connections. I was good with plants, so she hired me as her gardener. All was going well until one day I heard everything. She was talking to someone on the phone. She was arguing with someone about items and saying that she's gaining fame. She needs to be careful and that she's cutting all ties with them. I couldn't understand anything except that she was involved in something shady. She said, "Look, I'm sorry, but if people found out I'm involved in human trafficking, then all of us are doomed. You get that?" I guess after hearing that, I was so shocked. I accidentally dropped my shovel. She noticed and hung up the phone immediately. I knew I had to do something. This was so serious. But when I was on my way home, I was attacked and you know the rest, Alex explained. It all sounded so unreal. I'm getting into something dangerous. But how do you know that she killed you? It could have been someone else, I wondered. The people who attacked me were her guards. After I became a ghost, I went to her place to find out more about the human trafficking. But she was cautious, and I guess she'd cut ties with them, he says. By the way, where is your body buried? I asked him, because it could be proof. He grins. I was cremated. There goes my hope. He wants me to expose this to the police. I'm gonna need proof. It'll be risky, but it'll also save lives. I need to carefully think this through and make a plan. I'll think about it. Right now, I'm tired. I go back to bed. I couldn't get any sleep. He starts humming. I throw a pillow at him, knowing it'll just pass right through him. Shut up! I yell. He just laughs. Fine, he says, holding up his hands. I'll just do what he wants, so he would leave me alone. I'll need to think carefully. Slowly, as I'm about to drift off to sleep, I glance at him. He was murdered. It's hard to believe when he's so funny. He's just sitting there thinking in a trance-like state. I've noticed he does that a lot. I wonder what he's thinking about. Bright light slices the darkness as I slowly open my eyes. His ridiculous face is the first thing I see. Rise and shine, he says. I simply turn away. Quiet, I say. Aren't you forgetting about something? He says. He sure is impatient. Well, I did think about it and I guess I'll do it. If I could save more lives, then yes, I say honestly. He snickers. Yeah, that's good to hear, but that's not what I meant. He points towards the clock. My eyes widen as I realize I'm getting late. I'm late. Why didn't you wake me up? I say as I run to the bathroom. Nah, I thought I should let you sleep in, he says. At school, I take out my notebook and think of a plan. First of all, we need info. Till now, we only know that Eleanor Parker is involved in human trafficking. That's it. Maybe someone in her house knows something, but if they did, they would suffer the same fate as Alex. No, wait. Alex wanted to expose her secret and was caught. What if someone there knows about it and is keeping it hidden? Elizabeth, I hear my name being called, and I quickly close the notebook. It's the new girl, Madeline. She's transferred here last week. She sits next to me, so she talks to me sometimes. Yes, I reply. Are you okay? She asks with concern. Yeah, were you saying something? I ask her. I was asking if you're excited for tomorrow. She smiles. What's tomorrow? I ask her. She looks confused. You don't remember? It's Eleanor Parker on that 12 o'clock talking show. I can't wait to see her. She's such a gorgeous and vibrant person. Get this? I heard she's getting an offer for another movie. She totally deserves it. Oh, yeah, I think so too, I say, as if. I used to think like Madeline about Eleanor, but now the truth has been revealed. She's a wolf in sheep's clothing. By the way, if someone told you that Eleanor is actually a bad person, what would you do about it? I ask her. I'll do nothing because it'll be a lie. There's no way a person like her would be bad. She gives charity, is a good person, is very kind to her fans, and doesn't show off. She replies, to be honest, all of that is true. It's hard to believe a person like that would do such a thing. I guess that's what you'd call a double-faced person. Anyways, I'm going to the cafeteria. Wanna come? Madeline asks. I simply refuse. Oh, you're making friends, Alex says while laughing. I glare at him. Don't scare me like that. And I was not making friends, I say defensively. Yeah, whatever, he says and sits on top of my table. Anyways, where have you been? You weren't with me on the way to school. I ask, but he keeps quiet. He looks straight ahead. From the corner of my eye, I spot a girl in a tattered school uniform. She's definitely a ghost. She sees him look at her. Be careful of your surroundings. She wouldn't leave you if she noticed you can see her. He smirks. I roll my eyes. Just answer the question. I was at Eleanor's house. I go there sometimes to get leads. No luck though. All everyone was talking about was the upcoming movie and so on. Yes, I heard about it too. I do have a plan, but it's risky, I say. He looks interested. Great, let's hear it. If you want to hear about my plan to save lives in part 2 of my story, make sure to subscribe. Hello, my name is Kate. Now I'm going to say this. I am by no means a saint, and the only reason I brought this up is later in the story. So, I dated this guy in high school for 2 years. He was the love of my life, and I planned on marrying him. His dad became super controlling, and eventually he forced us to break up. He immediately got into a relationship with another girl, and I moved on. Later on, I met this guy who we will call Max, and he was a mix between country and scene. He liked artists like Lil Peep and also was in love with horses. He had a girlfriend who lived across the country, but we stayed friends. They eventually broke up, and naturally, we both grew closer. Dear God, I regret ever saying yes to going out with him. The first 2 months, they were constant fighting. He wanted us to visit his ex girlfriend because she was failing college and addicted to coke while we were together. He would sometimes text her while he was at my house or while we were at dinner, but eventually he quit. The next few months were okay at best. He would constantly start fights with my male friends and even assumed I was cheating on him with one friend who at the time did have a crush on me. But I'm a very loyal person who went as far as to put more of my time into hanging out with my boyfriend than my friends. Eventually, we went on a cruise and he got high with a group of girls and kissed one of them. I cut it off and went on to date others. So, he texted me 3 months after breaking up, saying he wants to talk and apologize for what he did. I was still in love with him, so I agreed and we set up a time for when he could come over. I knew instantly when he pulled into my driveway that I was going to regret ever responding. There was no hug, no I miss you, none of that. Instead, he walks up to me, looks me in the eye, and says, I want to get this out of the way. I've dated a lot of people since we broke up. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. I mean, I did the same when we broke up. So I kind of agreed to being just friends and never go back to talking about getting back together for now. But then comes the bullshit. He calls me one night and says, Hey, I want to get back with you. Because honestly, wandering around is boring, and I don't want to jump into things instantly. And I was wondering if dating without labels would be okay with you. When I asked him to elaborate, he replied, as in, I can still go to dinner with other girls, you can go to dinner with other guys, and we'll see what happens. Needless to say, I hung up without saying a word. Told him thanks, but no thanks. You are not who you used to be, and I'm not interested anymore. Bonus chapter. He stopped a few weeks, but he would periodically send me pictures of him at parties or on dates with other girls or pictures of his private areas. Anyways, ever since he has been blocked on everything, but I just thought I would share this with you. This is a shout out to every girl out there. Please find someone that's worth your love and affection, not someone who wants to play with it. Do you remember me? Probably not. I'm the girl that can see the future from Wendy's story. I cannot use my real name for safety purposes. For now, call me Sarah. I might have sounded evil or even crazy in Wendy's story, but believe me, this is not even close to the truth. Let me tell you about myself. I come from an extremely strict family. I'm not allowed to have friends, I'm not allowed to leave the house except for school, and I'm barely allowed to access the internet. I live with my mom, my dad, and my much younger brother. I wouldn't say we're homeless, but we are poor. I discovered my power when I saved my mom's life one time. I was only a kid, and we were picking up my brother from daycare. Right before my mom crossed the street, I blacked out and had my very first vision. I ran out of the car and screamed for her to stop. The second she froze in her place, there was a car accident. She could have died. She cried and hugged me, but never cared to ask how it happened. We're not a close family, so I never told anyone. I kept having those visions ever since. Years later, I learned how to control them. The few minutes of internet I was allowed, I always tried to look for a reason why or how I got my power. I never got an answer. I needed a distraction because I felt lost and like I did not belong. Now that I'm finally in high school, I asked my parents if I could have a part time job after school. They never gave me any money, and to be honest, I needed some. I knew they were going to say no, but to my surprise, they agreed on one condition that I give them half of my paycheck. I agreed. I got a job as a waitress in a local restaurant, and it was weird dealing with new people, but it was also so exciting. I quickly made a couple of friends who worked with me. I couldn't bring myself to trust them, but at least I had someone to talk to. One day at the restaurant, I heard some customers talking about something called the dark web. I wondered what it was. After my shift, I casually mentioned it to one of my colleagues. He explained everything to me. It was on my mind day and night. It sounded like a place full of weird people, just like me. With my first paycheck, I bought a new phone and kept it a secret from my parents. I immediately used it to access the dark web. It didn't look scary to me. I entered the chat room and decided I wanted to tell my secret to a stranger. You know what they say, confide your heart to a stranger. The guy seemed harmless, and he actually listened to me. Next day, I found an email from an unknown address. It was a picture of my house. I got so scared, and I turned off my phone. I went to school, and when I came back, my phone was turned on. There was another email, and it read, "You're going to help us accomplish a few missions. You'll get your share of the money. Meet me at this address at 11 p.m. tonight. If you try to act smart, you'll regret it." I had no idea what to do, but I knew I had to go. I snuck out that night and met the person from the email. He wore a mask and he threw some pictures at me. They were pictures of my family members. The first thing he said was, "Do you want them dead?" I shook my head. He said, "A quick test. What's going to happen in a few seconds?" I opened my eyes wide and said, "A black car will come pick us up." He nodded his head in approval. He blindfolded me and put me in the car. After a few minutes, he said, "You're coming with me. The guys here will do the work, and you will guide us." I nodded my head, even though I didn't know what he was talking about. Much later, they drove me back to the same address, gave me some cash, and threw me out the car. I removed the blindfold, and it was already morning. I had to run back home before my parents wake up, and that was the first of many, many missions to come. For a minute there, I enjoyed the thrill and the cash. Sometimes it was too much, and sometimes I had to skip school. And of course, I quit my job. I worked for them for what seemed like a year, until what I feared the most happened. The gang I worked for asked me to help them track a person so they can kill him. It was not a matter of choice. It's either I help them or they kill me and my whole family. I tried to ignore the email. However, an hour later, a server appeared on my phone. It was titled, "We See You," and it was full of pictures from inside my house. 30 seconds later, the page dropped and disappeared. I can't even tell the police. I can't do anything. That is when it occurred to me that the only untraceable person in the whole world is Wendy. Next day at school, I looked all around for her. I finally ran into her in the bathroom. I couldn't utter a word. I only had one hope, that she would hear my thoughts. I focused as hard as I can to think loud and clear. Wendy was fixing her lipstick in the mirror, and after a few minutes, she dropped her lipstick and looked at me. I begged her inside my head to keep her mouth shut. She blinked twice and left. The mission is happening in 24 hours. What if Wendy can't help? I didn't get a second of sleep that night. I know you think I'm a bad person, and I won't argue much, but killing someone was crossing the line. I wanted to get out of this long ago, and I couldn't. Now I have to help them kill an innocent person? Time just flew by. I got an email, and I had to drag myself to meet them. Their big boss looked at me and said, "This time you'll get cash and a fake degree. So stop acting like a baby and get to work." I nodded. I thought about giving them wrong information, but I knew I'll get caught. A sniper was waiting for a signal for me to shoot. I was only a few feet away from the victim. I was shaking nonstop. Right before I gave the signal, I heard a police siren. I looked at the sniper and he was about to shoot. I jumped and knocked the innocent man down, but I got shot in the arm. In the blink of an eye, the gang disappeared into thin air. Police called paramedics, and to my surprise, Wendy was here. She practically saved my life. Or are they going to find me and kill me and my family? The police confiscated my phone. My wound was properly taken care of, and they called my parents. To this point, I was not interrogated yet. My parents came, and they couldn't look me in the eyes. A police officer explained what happened and told them, "She's staying with us until further notice." And they all left. Well, except for Wendy. Her dad was cool enough to let her stay with me until police asked her to leave. She looked at me and said, "You owe me one, gangster." And we both laughed. A police officer came and informed us that Wendy will have to stay here as well, for her own safety. She looked at me and whispered, "We'll have a gang of our own when all of this is over." I smiled and didn't say anything. Wendy's face got serious and she asked me, "How am I gonna explain to them what happened in details? We cannot just tell the police we have superpowers." Before I could answer, a police officer came in and took her for questioning. Now, we're both in trouble with the dark web gang and the police. Wendy came back and they took me. She whispered, "We're doomed." I thought to myself so that Wendy could hear me say, "Oh, you think we're doomed? Wait until the gang finds us, and they will." I left the room feeling scared as ever. Do you guys think we'll ever be safe again? Do you think I got Wendy in trouble? Can I ever make up for the mess I made? If you want to know what happened to us, let me know in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Before this summer, I had zero experience with dating apps. Tinder wasn't even released until 2 years after my long-term relationship ended. During 7 years of my relationship, I had played around on my friends' apps, but never swiped left or right. Finding myself suddenly single at the beginning of the summer and in desperate need of distraction, I dove headfirst into the pool of online dating. I started with Tinder because my town is too small for anything else, and my cold, dead heart wanted casual dates and nothing serious. And that's the whole purpose of Tinder. Tinder met most of my expectations. I went on a handful of dates, met some cool guys, and some not so cool guys. I even hung out with a few truly interesting people, like a radio DJ who runs a wedding business on the side. What I did not expect from Tinder, however, was how most of these interactions started to make me feel good about myself. I mean, really good about myself. Like every woman in the world, I have never been happy with my body. At a size 10, I'm labeled plus size, and I've worn glasses on and off throughout my whole life. When I'm out with my girlfriends, I'm never the girl who is hit on, flirted with, or even picked up. Ever since I hit puberty and became aware of attractive versus unattractive, I've thought of myself as filling the role of the fat friend who just sits back and smiles. Obviously, I've had boyfriends, but they've always been my friends first. So when they said you're gorgeous, what I heard was, "I found you gorgeous only after getting to know you. I didn't immediately think you were pretty. I know that having someone attracted to your personality is way more important than thinking you're cute. But I wouldn't hate having just one guy who doesn't know me at all tell me that I'm attractive. Friends, family, and boyfriends, I don't believe. But a total stranger, that person I might actually listen to. This brings us back to Tinder. One of my first nights using the app, a friend and I sat on my back deck and decided who to swipe left and right on. With each it's a match, we laughed and looked into the guy's profile a bit more. After the third match, I said, "These guys are just judging me on my appearance, right?" And my friend nodded. "So they're only swiping because they think I'm cute? Or are they just swiping on every girl?" We concluded that obviously some of the guys were swiping right on every girl, but the chances of every single guy doing that were slim. We swiped some more. When I started matching with guys who were classically good looking, well, I won't lie, that felt really good. A hot guy actually thinks that I'm attractive? What? No. How could that be? Then the messages started. Some guys went right in with, "You're really pretty." Others went in for a conversation first before giving out compliments here and there. I know that this is how people operate on Tinder, but keep in mind that I'm not used to anything. It wasn't until I started meeting with these guys that I wondered, can Tinder actually boost my self esteem? Two guys asked how someone as pretty as me was still single. I went on a date with one guy who told me in Spanish that I was beautiful. Another guy who I'd met up with a few times asked me, "Are you looking for something serious?" I laughed like a loon in response. It wasn't the question that surprised me. It was the fact that I was coming from an incredibly attractive, incredibly fit guy. Because, yes, I'm being shallow and only swiping right on guys who I find physically attractive. When I was done laughing, I said something awkward like, "Oh, maybe? I mean, I'm not against it." My mind, however, was saying, "Are you serious? Have you seen yourself? Have you seen me?" I was, in fact, not attractive, but I simply knew how to dress well. I retreated into my unhealthy shell. Soon after that guy, I hung out with a sweet, nerdy medical student who was in town on a vacation. We got along well. The next day, as we met up again, he seemed shocked that I was on a second date. He kept repeating, "You're just so beautiful. I never get to do things like this." I don't know how to respond to compliments. And the medical boy shook his head. He said, "Don't do that. Don't body shame yourself. You're so attractive. Have you seen yourself? You're gorgeous." Something about that guy made my typical self hate thoughts start to lose hold. Again, I know that this is the type of stuff people say on Tinder, but let's be honest, why put in the extra effort? Unless it's true. Somewhere between the casual Tinder chats, the handful of dates, my mind circled a new thought. Am I attractive? I stared at myself in my full length mirror. I tried to see what these guys saw. Guys who did not know me at all. Guys who are not being swayed by my personality. And guys who have no reason to compliment me because I'm not looking for another relationship anytime soon. Suddenly I started to see it. Where I used to see unsightly lumps and a stomach I sucked in before turning off the lights, now I see a healthy, curvy, and dare I say it, slender body. Friends, family, and boyfriends have always told me that I'm attractive, but it wasn't until these strangers started repeating it over and over that I actually started to hear it. So, which is boosting my self esteem? Tinder or just plain dating? Or are they working in with one another because without Tinder, I probably wouldn't be dating at all? Romantically, I tend not to put myself out there. I typically wouldn't approach a guy and try flirting with him, for fear of rejection, of course. With Tinder, however, just matching with someone seems to lessen the fear of rejection. Whether you matched with them because they're genuinely interested, or you matched because they're saying yes to everyone, Seeing that it's a match message eases a tiny bit of the tension that goes into dating. Whether it's thanks to Tinder or not, in the past few months I've discovered newfound confidence. When someone compliments me, I say thank you instead of responding with a self hatred joke. When I meet a date for the first time, I work at being my usual chatty, sarcastic self rather than being shy and quiet. I have flirted with guys and even gave a random musician my number. For once in my life, I feel like I'm someone worth dating, rather than fearing my significant other might be too good for me. Did Tinder give me this confidence boost? Or am I just getting older and wiser? I don't know for sure. But what I do know is that I'm not going to stop online dating anytime soon.
My name is Keanu, and I'm 13 years old. I am a psychopath. I freely admit it in front of all of you. I attribute my sickness solely to my father, because any story about a cruel father pales in comparison to my father. He would abuse me physically, mentally, verbally, and emotionally in every given moment. He left no stone unturned in this regard. He would beat me into unconsciousness. He accused me of being the cause of my mother's death, who died during my childbirth. Whenever Dad had any problem at home, he would accuse me of being the cause of it. One time he even beat me at school when my teacher called him to school because I had beat up my classmate who had beaten me up first. I tried to explain to him, but he wouldn't listen, and he just beat me even more. One day, it was fun day at school, and everyone was supposed to invite their parents to visit the school for party and introduction activities. I chose not to invite my dad, so I was alone at the festivities. I felt envious of all my classmates for having loving parents to have fun with. My teacher noticed me alone, came over and offered to be my parent for the day. I was so happy. We had great fun together. Miss Linda had lost both her husband and her son in a plane crash, only she had survived. After fun day had passed, Miss Linda showed more interest in me. She would bring me sandwiches and spend time with me during breaks. I thought of her as my mom. When I succeeded in my final exams, she hugged me with tears of joy. I unconsciously said, "Thanks, Mom." I went home happy that day, but had to face my dad again. He asked me why I was late coming home, and I told him about having to pass my final exams. He didn't believe me, though, and asked me to show him proof. Unfortunately, I had none, so he began kicking and punching me. There was a knock on the door. He tried to block me from opening the door, but I managed to open it. Miss Linda was standing there. She glanced at my bruises and bloody face and moved between me and my dad to protect me from further abuse. Dad snarled and threatened her with a beating if she didn't leave immediately. But she hit him in the eyes with a blast of mace or pepper spray, and he went down to the floor in extreme discomfort, grabbing at his eyes. Miss Linda called the police, told them about Dad's child abusive nature, and had him arrested. Now I live with Miss Linda as my new mom. Dad is in prison, where I hope he stays till he dies or rots. Either outcome is okay with me. My name is Ricardo. Though I am a 21-year-old, my body is the size of a 10-year-old boy because I was born with a disease called Prader-Willi syndrome, PWS, which stunted my body growth while allowing my mind to continue developing. Most people would consider PWS to be a curse, but it was a gift for Dad and me because we took advantage of this situation. My story starts when Dad's company accused him of embezzlement and fired him. The scandal and shame of this incident kept him from getting any other type of work, so we left our country to start a new life elsewhere. Dad was still unable to get a job because his old company always gave him bad references when called by prospective new employers. Dad was worried about our future, so he improvised and came up with a scheme to turn me into the goose that laid the golden egg. You see, children always bullied me due to my small body size. Luckily, my mature mind helped me avoid fights most of the time. One day, Dad asked me if I wanted to become famous, and I said, sure. He told me that we needed a way to gain people's sympathy, and he explained his plan. We went to the garage and found some old torn clothes that he asked me to wear. Then he poured dirty water on me. Then he made a recording of me crying and explaining that I had been beaten by some bullies in our neighborhood. After we finished making our sympathy-garnering video, he applauded my performance and posted it to the internet to see what reaction we would get. The next day, our video went viral, and I became an instant celebrity. All the news agencies gave the video broad coverage, and I began receiving sympathetic phone calls and donations from around the world. Several international schools offered me free scholarships at their schools, and I managed to amass a good size of money from all the donations, and for a moment, I thought our days of poverty were finally over. Unfortunately, the authorities investigated my background and found that I was 21 years old and not really a kid at all. Then all my fortunes reversed themselves, and the police came after me for fraud. I am speaking to you now from a hotel room as I hide from the police. I have enough money to head to another country, preferably one that has no extradition treaty with my country. I have enough money to live comfortably without needing to work for the rest of my life. So, on balance, I don't have any regrets about what I've done.
I'm a musician. Not a terribly great one, but still, I consider myself a musician. I know my way around an instrument or two. More importantly, I'm a collector. I love collecting things, starting from coins to lottery tickets. There's no rhyme or reason to my collection. It consists of anything uniquely interesting I can get my hands on. That is why when I saw an ad on Craigslist for a vintage, rustic, red piano, I could not help but reach out to the seller. The ad's title seemed normal enough. It said, "Old Piano, Rita Goodhome." It was nothing out of the ordinary, and not something that would normally grab my attention. Still, I felt a strange need to click on it. Perhaps I was bored, or maybe I just wanted to see what it looked like. Either way, I gave in to the temptation. There was no picture, just a story. It read something like this: "I'm offering my piano to anyone who is willing to come and pick it up. It is very old, but still playable. I can prove this upon your arrival. It is red and has no brand markings. This is because it was made by my great-grandfather. It is one of a kind. He went out himself and chopped down a redwood tree to provide the material to build it. It took him many days to finally cut down the tree, and much, much longer to finish making the piano. Nearly his entire life was put into this thing. I, however, have no use for it. It has been passed down in my family many times over. I have no wish to continue the tradition, and the piano is currently taking too much space in my home. I want it gone as quickly as possible. You can reach me by phone at the number listed below. Margaret." Reading the ad sparked my curiosity. One of a kind? Redwood tree? How strange and absurd! I had to see this thing. If it was half as remarkable as Margaret's description, then it was a must-have for my ever-growing collection. As such, I decided to give her a call. Margaret answered the phone after the first ring and immediately asked, "Is this about the piano?" She was thrilled to hear I was interested. I too was thrilled, happy to know it was still available. We set up a time the next day for me to come over and take a look at it. I hung up the phone, excited as I could be. I had a feeling this piano would become the new masterpiece of my collection. Being a musician, I own countless instruments, too many to list. Each time I acquired a new item, my heart would race with excitement. The piano was no different. I couldn't wait to see it in person. I woke up the following day with no resistance to my alarm. starting my daily routine in an effort to minimize the time between me and Margaret. She said she was an early bird and that I could swing by early. With that in mind, I showered, brushed my teeth, and got dressed at a record pace. I made it out the door roughly 25 minutes after getting out of bed. It might sound silly to be so worked up over a material object, but to that I'd say, you must not be a collector. Seeing this piano in person was my mission, and it was one I intended to see through the end. I found myself at Margaret's home within an hour. It was a small cottage at a dead end road, surrounded by a forest. There was an old tire swing in the backyard, indicating that it may have been where Margaret grew up. I wonder if her parents passed away and left her the house. Maybe the piano reminded her of them, and that was the real reason why she was getting rid of it. My speculation was interrupted by a woman racing out of the cottage to greet me. She signaled for me to come inside and went back in herself. This was with no doubt Margaret. I hadn't introduced myself in any way, but it wasn't likely that she received many visitors, and that's most likely because of where she lives. Eager to see the piano, I quickly jumped out of my car and made my way up to the stone walkway to the front door. Entering the house, Margaret seemed overjoyed to see me. It was overwhelming, but made things a little less awkward. She rushed me over to the room with the piano. She was so excited to show it to me, just as I was excited to see it. I matched her pace as we made our way up there. Upon entering, I stopped dead in my tracks. It was a beautiful concoction of wood and ivory, the likes of which I've never seen before. It had such a striking red color with a bold finish, and the design was mind blowing. Simple, yet elegant. Highly original, and certainly one of a kind, like Margaret stated in her ad. I stood there for a moment. Margaret mistook my reaction for disinterest, quickly going off on a sales pitch about its charm and history and so on. She then sat down at its stool and placed her hands over the keys. I tuned it yesterday after your call. Let's hear how it sounds. Margaret played a beautiful piece. In addition to playing, she also sang. This is when I took my attention away from the piano and allowed myself to notice her. She was young, maybe in her 20s. Her singing voice, accompanied by the wonderfully rich tone of the piano, has totally captivated me in a way that I can't put into words. I allowed myself to be taken by the song until she finished. Before I could compliment her, Margaret continued her well rehearsed sales pitch. I don't know if it was her playing or her voice, but I was sold the minute she touched the keys. Because of this, I interrupted her. I'll take it. She was astounded when I said this. Really? You will? Wonderful. We were both happy and everything seemed fine. But one fact kept creeping and crawling at the back of my mind. The history of each piece in my collection is very important to me, and the piano had gaps that needed to be filled. So, have you lived in this house your whole life? I asked, secretly fishing for information. Yes, as did my parents. This house is very old, older than the piano. And your great grandfather, he lived here as well? I asked. Yes, he did. Well, redwoods don't grow everywhere, and they're truly massive. It seems unlikely that he would have made the trek out there or even have been able to chop one down, especially with the many trees here at his disposal. It was at this point that Margaret realized I had caught her in a lie. She apologized to me. and she came clean. It would seem that the piano was made from a red tree, just not redwood. Instead, it was a strange tree located deep in a nearby forest. Being a historian, Margaret's great grandfather knew all about it. This particular tree was a local legend, and it had always been his dream to find it. It was known as the Blood Tree, a sacred place. Anyone who touched it was said to live a long life filled with luck. Those who wounded it, however, would forever know fear and misfortune. Her great grandfather, of course, fell into the latter category. Though she claimed not to believe in the legend, she was worried the curse would scare off anyone who wanted it. Dark past or not, I still wanted it. Despite Margaret's deception, I attempted to offer her money. She wouldn't have it, insisting I just take the thing off her hands. That would have been fine, but I couldn't bring myself to offer nothing in return. Eventually, I convinced her and handed over an envelope with a decent amount of money in it. She accepted and helped me lift the thing into the back of my truck. I waved and drove off, satisfied with my purchase. Later on, with the help of a friend, I positioned it in the perfect spot in my living room. I had a new piece for the collection and I couldn't be happier, or so I thought. For a few days, my life continued as it normally did. My routine remained unchanged. The only difference was the new piece that grabbed my attention whenever I entered the room. After a while, I barely noticed it was there. Despite its beauty, it soon blended in with the rest of my home, much like the other items in my collection. One night, however, changed everything. I had just gone to bed when a loud bang downstairs jolted and freaked me out. I jumped out of bed and took a moment to breathe. The sound was unmistakably the piano's fallboard slamming shut over the keys. That could easily happen on its own had I left it open, and that was not the case. I hadn't played the piano once since I bought it. So what created the sound? I raced downstairs and hoped to put my mind at ease. What I found was horrifying. The piano's fallboard was up. Not only had it not shut over the keys, but it was open despite my never touching it. Confusion swam through my brain, but soon submitted to the clutches of late night tiredness. To make sense of things, I shut the fallboard and went back to bed. Nothing to worry about. The next day was pretty normal. At first, I woke up early, took a shower, brushed my teeth, and started my commute. I worked and dealt with the stress that came along with it, just as I always did. The piano was the farthest thing from my mind. It wasn't until I got home that it crept its way back in. Upon opening the door to my house, I was greeted with a cold gust that rushed out from within. I hadn't left the AC on, so that was strange. I walked into the living room and put my jacket on the couch. I then looked up and noticed the piano. The fallboard, it was up. That could not be true. I shut it the night before. Had someone break in? I ran around my house with a kitchen knife in my hand, ready to attack. There was no one. After checking every inch of my house, I eventually found myself back in the living room in front of the piano. The fallboard was now down. Was I going mad? No, of course not. This was just the byproduct of an exhausted, overworked mind, nothing more. At least, That's what I told myself to keep from dwelling on it. Still somewhat freaked out, I went to my bedroom for some quality sleep. A good end to a bad day.